An appropriate range where we should be. So that all that means is that everything is going according to plan.
According to plan. Having big mice on the rockets in outer space is according to plan.
All right, Truth Seekers. Alex alerts us today.
And it says Section 529A. This is absolutely.
And so he is reading a section from Bill H.R. 4350, which acts as an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act for 2022. He goes into great detail for a Sunday show. For his show of today, July 28th, 2022, he makes this interesting commentary about some of his resources to confirm information.
In plain clothes, which we know is going on, because I have folks that work here that have been in special operations who recognized and talked to people they knew that were there for the U.S. Army and others in plain clothes at the Capitol.
So he has some forces working within his own organization that has provided him an insight into January 6th, among other issues. Partly because of the strength of his connections, you have to really take Alex seriously. His entire show today is an emergency bombshell about how the Democrats were caught red-handed in serving actual martial law and presidential dictatorship for the 2023 NDAA. Okay, so in Alex's show, he claims that the military will be placed under the direct control of Biden for domestic operations, which is in essence a yield to the office of the president, true dictatorial power, as he will be enabled to use the military against his political enemies. I have the bill pulled up. I put in all kinds of keyword searches to try to find this section. I've not had time to read even the smallest portion of this bill, as it's over 1,000 pages long, so I've not been able to find this claimed section. It's noted that California Governor Gavin Newsom appeared at the White House last week. It's Alex's speculation that Gavin Newsom is making his early appearance to be put in the public eye for consideration as the next president.
How's this look? Okay.
I'm going to go over some sections of the bill with you. You should know that this bill has so far passed the House about 5 days ago, and so it merely has to pass the Senate and then receive the president's signature. Julie Kelly notes that Schiff files an amendment that would conceal any info collected by the U.S. military for use in congressional investigations or court proceedings. This represents a massive attempted cover-up of enormous proportions and preemptive power grab to prevent GOP oversight next year. In essence, what it would mean is that Defense Secretary Austin could decline any request for materials related to deadly Afghan withdrawal, the woke policies, the mandates and injuries, January 6th, among other issues. The military's role in Jan 6 include the use of assets before and on that day, as well as the use of intelligence services such as the NCIS, which we know were a part of the investigatory process. And so here's a relevant Schiff amendment. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, any information obtained by or with the assistance of member of the armed forces shall not be received in evidence in any trial, hearing, or other proceedings in or before any court, grand jury, department, officer, agency, regulatory body, legislative committee, or any other authority of the United States, a state, or political subdivision thereof. Tucker Carlson covers the topic.
Ideologues get power, they waste no time. Their aggression has no limits. They change as much as they can, as quickly as they can, while they have power. That's what's happening right now. That's why it's so hard to keep up with everything that's changing. Here's a story you probably haven't heard. Adam Schiff, congressman from California, now proposing an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act that would hide any information collected by the U.S. military for use in congressional investigations. That would include information about Afghanistan, vaccine mandates, and January 6th. Now, why would the U.S. military be collecting information about January 6th? Not really their job. But that would include information about, for example, Ray Epps, the mysterious man who urged people to storm the Capitol on January 5th and 6th and has never been indicted.
Okay, and here's Julie's commentary.
To this amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act, I think the vote's tomorrow, by Adam Schiff. What is this exactly?
Well, you know, since Adam Schiff's name is attached to it, that it's nothing good. It's not like he is a transparency champion for good government. He is a cover-up artist for bad government. So to your point, what this means is that he is trying to stick this into this massive bill that will enable the Department of Defense under Joe Biden to conceal information collected related to really anything that the Defense Department has been involved in, especially related to domestic law enforcement, which we know is already unlawful. So this is very sketchy. I've talked to military experts, including attorneys. They're not sure what this means, but we know, since, as I said, with Adam Schiff's name attached to it, it can be up to no good except to act in service to cover up things that the American public deserve to know.
It's Alex's belief that Joe Biden will eventually be taken out at some point via 25th Amendment, or if he were to succumb to natural causes, Gavin Newsom will swoop in. Now, how they would facilitate his transition versus Kamala Harris, I'm not really sure. Alex also worries for Donald Trump's safety too in this transition. Alex points to this office that's established in the bill, the Office for Countering Domestic Extremism. If the bill is signed to law, this will be placed in Chapter 89 of U.S.C. 10, Section 1801. And so it's stated, there will be a director for countering extremism appointed by the Secretary of Defense. The duty of the director will be to develop a policy to counter extremism, where? In the military. The director shall work in coordination with the secretaries of military departments to develop and implement programs, resources, and activities to counter extremism within the armed forces. And unfortunately, they're going to engage and interact with and solicit recommendations from outside experts on extremism. Who could that be? Could it be the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center? Or recommend viewing an episode from the Corbett Report, Meet the Southern Poverty Law Center, so there you can learn how they've always operated as a far-left political institution in a realm of censoring conservative, different viewpoints. I'll drop a link to this and send within my Telegram, which will be pinned to the comment section below. Within this bill, that again has already passed, it states, in general, the director shall establish and maintain a database on extremist activities in armed forces. Records established in subsection A shall include records on each incident, complaint, or allegation of extremism by a member or civilian employee of the armed forces. And so keep in mind, they're going to be using some experts for guidance. And so then it comes down to what's considered extreme and who's considered extreme. If the military leadership is already radicalized to the left, they're going to assume their political opposition is extreme. And so those armed forces who might have accidentally mentioned something from these 17 boards, maybe snuck a little name drop of Epstein, they're gonna get filed. And Adam Schiff's gonna gatekeep this information from the courts. The idea will be a conduit of the wrong think info going directly from the military to the select committee under a democratic leadership. There is fear that this legislation will be used to subvert the Posse Comitatus Act. It's an 1878 law that prohibits the Army or Air Force enforcing U.S. laws unless authorized by the Constitution or Congress. I could not really find any language, obviously, subverting Posse Comitatus in this bill, but then again, I have not really had time to read the whole thing. Alex is going to have to flesh out how the bill, if written into law and included in the U.S. Code, would be applied on civilians in addition to the military. In the research, you can get partly there to understanding that connection by keyword searching civilian within the bill. There are 122 entries for this word. I think this is an area for further research. Pete Santilli weighs in on this new Office for Countering Domestic Extremism and its implications.
Indicated that there was a military and intel operation going on in the November election. So they're trying to prohibit any potential whistleblowers internally. How are they trying to disconnect us? There's a twofold effort here in this 4350. Not only do they want to purge the military of extremists, they want to disconnect, of course, anyone in the military from anything having to do with the American public. For instance, if you click on, and it specifically references extremism, for instance, if you click on a "Don't Tread on Me" flag, or any article that is favorable to the extremist agenda, you're therefore considered an extremist and could be either disciplined or discharged.
And this is in the legislation, not just to make the president a dictator, the office of the president beyond Biden, not just to not have oversight, but they specifically say, when you're reading it, that we're going after the extremists and the military's preparing for a war with the people. I mean, it's totally criminal. It's an indictment of them. Why are they so desperate to do this?
Again, I don't see anywhere in the bill where it says about starting a war with people. I don't really have a crackpot team of researchers analyzing the bill either. He provides an example of how Hitler became president before the Reichstag fire, and then once that occurred, the dictatorial powers were then transferred to the office of the president of Germany. So I leave this up to your consideration. See you.